Hello everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of An American in Thailand, airing every Friday. This program is broadcast from Ratchamakon, University of Technology, Peranakan. This program will come to you in two parts. For the first part, I will introduce a certain topic about being an American living here in Thailand. Could be about food, travel, culture, politics, current events, anything like that we want to talk about. We'll then take a break, and in the second part of the program, we'll get into more details, specifics, examples, whatever, just more details about our topic. All right, let's get to the program. Welcome everyone, my name is Gary Gray and I am your host for An American in Thailand. I am an American English teacher here at Ratchamakon, University of Technology, Peranakan. I've been teaching here for about 9 years, the entire time I've been here at this university, and so I've been here long enough that I think I have a pretty good understanding of the Thai culture. I'm always still learning new things, but a pretty good understanding. So that's why I wanted to host this program where we talk about sort of the differences between Thai and American culture. Today's episode, we are going to do something a little differently, though. We're not really going to talk about comparing the different cultures. I'm going to talk about something more related to current events and try to explain something for our Thai audience about something that's happening with America, because there's some big news as of the recording of this program. There's some big news going on in the world, which involves America, and I wanted to discuss that a little bit. All right, so before we get started, some of you on YouTube probably noticed we have no video this week for the second week in a row. Hopefully we'll get that back next week. So I apologize for no video. Obviously, those of you on the radio or on streaming, you would not even notice that there's no video. But our YouTube audience may have noticed that. Okay, so what we're going to discuss today is kind of a serious topic, but I just want to explain kind of what's going on. For those in Thailand who may not understand kind of the background. So right now, as we record this, it's the beginning of March of 2026. So as of just like a day or two ago, the United States and Israel went to war with Iran. So a lot of people in Thailand may not understand the reason for this. What's going on? Well, why is this happening? Because it's really a big deal because it's kind of expanding out, which is not a good thing, but that's what's happening. So, for example, America has a lot of allies in that area around Iran. Not a lot of great allies, admittedly. We don't share a lot of the same values, but they're kind of allies of convenience. But we do have a lot of allies in that area, like the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, obviously Israel. America's kind of famous for being allies with Israel, Kuwait, so Saudi Arabia. So we're allied with a lot of countries in that area. Because of that, we also have military bases in some of those locations. And so Iran, because they're very angry about this war, even though those other countries were not involved, Iran has started attacking those other countries. And now those other countries are mad because they specifically opposed this war and they told the U.S. that they cannot use their bases there, the U.S. military bases that are located in their countries. They cannot use those bases to launch their attack against Iran. And so Iran has turned around and attacked them anyway. Attacked those countries. And not even just the military, the U.S. bases that are in those countries. They've attacked some very famous buildings in UAE, Qatar, Bahrain. They've attacked some really famous buildings there. Hotel. So these countries are not happy. So they may get involved too. It may expand even more because they may go on the offensive. So we have to see what happens. Hopefully not. Hopefully it doesn't continue to expand, but it could. It could. All right. So what might be the most confusing thing for the Thai people is they may wonder why. Why is this all going on? I'll be honest with you. even most Americans don't really have a good explanation. Our government has not given us a great explanation. For example, the two reasons they give don't seem very believable. The main issue they've given is a question about the weapons that Iran has. Many people throughout the world, not just America, don't want Iran to have certain types of weapons because they're not a very trustworthy country. Now, of course, you can argue that it's not America's job to police that. Fair argument. I think a lot of Americans would agree with that argument. But if you're going to say that, if the world is going to say that they can't have those weapons, and they're going to insist that they have those weapons, well, then someone is going to have to enforce it, and America has the biggest military, so it ends up being America. Again, I'm not saying that to justify it. There's a lot of reasons why this argument doesn't seem correct. First of all, last year in June, I believe it was, could have been July, I think it was June, the U.S. struck all of the nuclear facilities in Iran. And while a lot of experts said, well, they weren't totally destroyed or the damage was minimal, the President of the United States himself said that they were completely obliterated, gone. So they don't have that capability anymore, according to the U.S. themselves. Now, again, granted, a lot of experts disagree with that, but that's according to the U.S. themselves. So the other type of weapon that a lot of the world does not want Iran to have are ballistic missiles. Now, what ballistic missiles are is those are ones that have better aim and they can travel further. The problem with that is they are, first of all, they already have some. So, I mean, you've not stopped them from getting it. It's going to be hard to just destroy all of the ones that they have. But the ones that could reach the U.S., because Iran's very far away, are intercontinental. They don't have those. They're not even close to having those. And they're probably not close to having nuclear weapons. Even if we didn't do a lot of damage when those sites were bombed last year, most experts believed they weren't very close anyway. Some people tried to say they were in order to kind of scare up the issue to justify the attack last year. But most experts don't think they're very close to having nuclear weapons. So there's that question. Is it even about that? It doesn't seem like a very good. It doesn't seem like a very valid reason. But that's the But I'm just trying. But we're going to discuss kind of more about whether it's good or bad in the second part. This first part, I'm just trying to tell you why, and that's one of the reasons they're giving. Whether you believe it or not, whether that's a valid reason or not, you can judge that for yourself. But that's one of the reasons they're giving. Another reason they're giving is the fact that there were a lot of protesters that got killed that were protesting against their leader. I don't know. This happens in a lot of countries all over the world. And it's kind of an internal issue. It's not good if the government's killing their own people, but, I mean, there's a lot of bad countries out there that do bad things. I would say it's not really up to other countries to get involved. But again, I'm not trying to get into whether it's right or wrong, good or bad. I'm telling you that that's the reason. I'm just saying that I don't know if that's a real reason because of what I just said. Because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. There are a lot of countries that do things like that. But that's one of the reasons they're giving. That's one of the reasons, is that their government is killing thousands of their own people. All right, another reason that's suspected, but not really being given because it's not politically, it doesn't sound good, is that Israel wants it and Saudi Arabia maybe also wants it because neither of those countries like Iran. And they just want to see Iran kind of beaten down. And then a fourth reason, which people that don't like the current president of the United States will give, and again, whether it's true or not, I'm not trying to judge that. But some people say it's a distraction from what is called the Epstein files. You may not be aware of what that means. But the Epstein files, there was a gentleman named Jeffrey Epstein who did a lot of bad things, let's just say. And there were a lot of very wealthy and powerful people associated with him. And the question is whether or not they did bad things. And so there are lots and lots and lots and lots of documents or files about Mr. Epstein. And people want to see them because they want to see who he's associated with. And we do know that the current president's name comes up a lot in those documents. There are bad things in there, but a lot of them are just accusations. We don't know what he did, what he didn't do. Who knows? But there's also been a lot of information that they have not yet released, which they were supposed to. And they have now said, oh, we're done releasing things. And so there's still a lot of talk, a lot of kind of anger over this. Like, where are the files? According to most estimates, they've only released about half the files. And they haven't given a really good reason as to why. And that's also part of the law. There was a law passed that said they had to release the files, and whatever they didn't release, they had to give a reason for not releasing. And they haven't really given a reason. So there are some people who do not like the president, who think that he's using this to distract from that. He's using this war to distract from that story. That seems kind of... I don't know. I don't know if... I don't know. It's just very conspiratorial. I'm not going to say that he wouldn't do that. Politicians have done stuff like that in the past, where they try to distract from one story by creating another story. So I'm not going to say it wouldn't happen. But I'm also not very big into conspiracy theories, so whatever. Again, I'm just giving you the reasons. So the 4 reasons are issues with the weapons that Iran has or is trying to get, the fact that they're killing protesters. Israel and Saudi Arabia have encouraged the United States to do this, and a distraction from those Epstein files. And again, I'm not saying that is the reason. I'm telling you what people are saying is the reason. The U.S. government is using the first 2 reasons I just told you about. There is some reporting on that 3rd reason about Israel and Saudi Arabia pushing the U.S. And then people who don't like the president are using this 4th reason. So those are the reasons being given for why this is going on. Now, you may say none of these are good reasons because it's like a full-out war. People are getting killed. Fine. I'm not trying to say whether it's good or bad. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the second part of the program. First part of the program, I just wanted to explain to you what's going on. Like, what is this all about? Why is this going on? And the official reason are those first 2 reasons I gave. It's about the weapons Iran either has or is trying to get, and it's about the leadership in Iran suppressing its own people. Now, it seems to be more about the first one, because the President of the United States gave an address, just recorded, that he released on social media. I believe it was Sunday morning. I could be wrong about the time, and the time zone difference makes it a little weird to figure out, but I think it was Sunday morning. And he mostly focused on the weapons. So that seems to be the big reason. There are weapons that most of the world does not want Iran to have. Even people that are friends with Iran kind of know that their country is not stable enough to have things like nuclear weapons. So even countries that like Iran don't want them to have nuclear weapons. They would prefer, however, to not have a war, but rather negotiate it. Come to some negotiation so we can prevent them from getting those weapons. So it's mostly about that. At least that's the reason being given, the official reason. So that's what's going on here, is that Iran is being attacked to prevent them from getting certain types of weapons. And let me repeat again that There are other reasons being given by different people, so you can believe whatever you want to believe. That is the official reason being given. Is that they were having negotiations, the negotiations weren't succeeding, and so the U.S. said, fine, we're going to take action, and this is where we are now. All right, so in part 2 of this program, we will discuss whether or not this is a good or a bad thing. I mean, obviously war is never really good, but sometimes you may have no choice. There are certain wars that kind of have to be fought. Like World War II was kind of a big deal that had to be settled. I mean, that's a war you have to get involved in. So sometimes you have no choice but to resolve things militarily. I'll give another example. The war in Kuwait, which occurred in the early 1990s. Iraq just invaded Kuwait without warning. So the U.S. went in and got Iraq out of Kuwait. That was probably a reasonable war to do because Kuwait was an ally. They were invaded, and they didn't really have an army big enough to fight off the Iraqis. So someone needed to help them. So the U.S. went in, helped out their ally, and got Iraq out of Kuwait. It's probably a reasonable war to go into. Because someone was invaded. That's probably reasonable. So some wars are reasonable, some are not. So that's what I mean when I say whether it's good or bad. Obviously a war is never good. So whether it's justifiable, whether it's a useful war or not. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about in the second half. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. All right, so we're talking about current events as of early March of 2026. There's currently a war going on between the United States and Israel on one side and Iran on the other side, and maybe some other countries getting drawn into it. Given what's going on, it's still in a developing situation. So in the first part of our program, we talked about why this is going on. I just want my Thai listeners here to be able to understand what's going on, like why is this happening. So now for our second part here, I want to talk about whether or not this is good or bad. As I said at the end of the first half, it's never good, it's a war, right? But what I mean by good is there a positive outcome from this? Okay, so let's talk about the reasons why it's a good thing. For one thing, you probably are going to prevent Iran from getting the weapons you don't want them to have. That probably will be successful because the U.S. has a lot of military might, so does Israel. They have a lot of spy capabilities, so they can probably get inside and figure out what Iran's weapon capabilities are, how close they are to getting a nuclear weapon. They can probably sabotage some things. There's a lot of stuff they can do. So if the goal is to prevent Iran from getting certain weapons, that's probably going to be successful. You'll at least delay them. Obviously, they could restart up their programs and moving back forward towards getting those weapons again, but you could at least slow them down. So that's probably going to be successful. So that's probably a positive thing. Because as I said, most of the world, even people who are allies with Iran, don't think they should have certain types of weapons. There are some countries out there that just are not stable enough to be trusted with certain types of weapons. Iran is one of them. Okay, so like I said, even their friends don't really want them to have certain weapons. Okay, so that's probably a good thing. The other thing that could be good that comes out of this is removing a bad regime. Now, that one's a little tricky. Who says they're bad? Yeah, they just killed tens of thousands of their own people protesting. That seems pretty bad to me. But I can tell you right now, there's a lot of Iranians who still love that regime. They were out protesting. They were filling the streets in protest against this war against their country. Just so you know, in case you haven't seen the news on this, in case you haven't been paying attention, But one of the strikes that Israel, this was one that was directed by Israel, that Israel took on Iran, did actually kill their supreme leader. Now, that does not mean regime change is here already. No, because they can just put someone else in his place. But there does seem to be a goal. In fact, the President of the United States has even said this. There does seem to be a goal to remove the entire regime. So that could be a good thing, but not necessarily. We tried that in the 1970s. It did not work because we put in someone who we liked. Yeah, we liked him, but the Iranian people didn't. So you have to do something that the Iranian people want. This has to be up to them. So it could be a good thing depending on where things go, depending on how it all works out. And that gets to part of what's bad about it. And that is that there does not seem to be a clear plan for what happens next. Who's going to take over? There's been some talk that the Shah, who was the leader that we put in place back in the 1970s, there's been some talk that maybe his kid will take over. Really? That seems like a completely foolish idea. They didn't like the father. They're probably not going to like the son. Not to mention that the son's pretty old himself. He's not too old, but he's kind of old. He's not going to be some young, spry leader who's going to be around for a long time. It's just, I don't know, there does not seem to be a good, clear plan. Now, maybe there is, and the countries leading this effort just aren't talking about it because it's just not that important right now until the actual war part of it gets resolved, and then we'll deal with the aftermath then. And so maybe they're just not talking about it. Maybe they have a great, wonderful plan. They have people lined up for successors, ready to go. It's all good and fabulous. But at least right now it does not seem like it. So there are a couple of other bad points here. Another bad point is kind of what I mentioned before about it being a bad regime. Is it really? We think it is. By our Western standards in America. And Israel, even though it's located right there, is generally considered kind of Western in their in their culture. So they're kind of a Western country as well. So by Western standards, sure, looks really bad. It's a religious theocracy. It's not how you're supposed to run a country, according to us. It is not up to us to decide. It's up to Iran to decide. It's up to the Iranian people to decide on what they want their government to be. Now, it is true that in some countries, because the government is so repressive, the people can't decide. That is true. But it's always dangerous getting involved in the internal government affairs of another country. Always dangerous. So for us to use our standards to define whether or not it's a good or a bad regime is dangerous. It clearly looks bad to us because of what they're doing. Like I said, they killed tens of thousands of their own people. But still, as I mentioned, there's been plenty of people protesting in Iran against the U.S. and in favor of their current regime. Plenty of people in Iran seem to like their current regime. All right, and the third reason it's bad is just the obvious one. It's war. People are going to die. Innocent people. There are reports that a girls' school got hit in Iran because it was right next to a military installation. And so presumably a missile or something missed its target by just a little bit and hit the school. And a bunch of school children were killed. Obviously not good. So, I've given you the good. I've given you the bad. All in all, I don't want to even give you my opinion about whether or not it's good or bad. What does my opinion matter? I'm one person. I will let you decide. I just want to present you the information. You could probably tell which way I'm leaning. You can probably kind of tell what my opinion is. I will say this. There is a new poll from Reuters that just came out since the war began, and it shows that by a 2-to-1 margin, 55 to 27%, the majority of Americans oppose the war with Iran. Even though it's America that's leading the charge, most Americans are not in favor of it. Now you could say 55%, that's kind of a small majority. Yes, but there's also a lot of people that have not formed an opinion yet. Because it's 55-27, that only comes out to 82%. There's 18% that have no opinion. Probably everyone is eventually going to have an opinion on this. And probably all of those 18% are not all 100% of that 18% going to be in favor of it. So that 55% against is probably going to go up. And so it's and if that other 18% breaks down 2-to-1 again, that would be 12 and 6%. So that 55% is going to go up to 67. So that'll be about 2/3. And if you do the math, this is a little bit of crazy math. You have to figure out how to do this. But if you do the math on it, of those that have an opinion, it is 67. That's how that would work out. It would work out the same way. It is about 67%. So that means 2/3 of Americans are against the attack on Iran. All right? So that is important to know. It is important for the entire world to know, because I think most of the world is against this as well. Just understand that the American people, even though it's a democracy, kind of, sort of, not exactly, but even though it's a democracy, that doesn't always mean that the American people support what the American government does. Yes, we did vote in that American government, but sometimes they don't do what they say they were going to do. And in fact, this administration has explicitly said they would not start new wars like this. So, yeah, most Americans are not in favor of this. 67% of those who have an opinion, because again, 18% don't even have an opinion. So it's 55 to 27. So if you just take that 82% that have an opinion, that's 55% plus 27%. If you just take those 82%, it's 67% of that. So 67% of Americans who have an opinion on this are against it. So just be aware of that. It's important for the world to know that, because I think the world is also mostly against this. Some people in the world are probably for it. People in Israel might be for it. I'm sure a lot of people in Saudi Arabia are probably for it. Some of the other Arab countries may be for it. In case you're not familiar with the background in that region, we think of them all as being the same because they're all these Islamic countries. No, they're not all the same. In fact, they're very different. The Iranians are not Arab. They're Persian. So their kind of historical background is very different. They were also never taken over during the Ottoman Empire, which is like the longest empire ever in history. And they never managed to take Iran. So they're kind of in conflict with one another. Yes, they do sometimes side with one another because they are all of the Islamic faith, and a lot of them don't like having Israel there. Some of them are okay with that. They've kind of come to terms with that and have made peace with Israel. But still, a lot of them don't like to have Israel there. So sometimes they join together, like Iranians, like the Persians and the Arabs, they'll join together to go against Israel. But a lot of times, no, they're not friends. So some of those Arab countries may be happy about this. But I think most people in the world are against this action. And so I think it's important for all of those people in the world who are against this to know that 2/3 of the Americans are against it. Again, I didn't offer my own opinion, but since 2/3 of Americans are against it, you can probably guess my opinion. All right. Basically, the idea, I think, for most Americans is don't get involved in the internal affairs of another country. I understand if they're a direct threat to your own country's well-being, you might have to. I could see that. If someone's threatening you, if they're building those nuclear weapons like they're being accused of. But every expert says that Iran is not close to attaining nuclear weapons. And even our own president in the United States said we obliterated their entire program last year. I mean, most people don't believe that. Most experts don't think that's true either. But that's what he said. So, now, I get that if they are trying to get them, you don't necessarily have to wait till the last second to take care of the problem. So you don't want to wait around and do nothing. But there's probably no need for war right now. It just seems pointless. Seems like you could continue negotiating. And if the negotiations continue to not go anywhere, if the experts believe they are close to attaining those type of weapons you don't want them to have, then maybe you have no choice. At that point, maybe you have no choice but to do something. But right now, I don't know. Maybe the experts are wrong. Maybe there are other experts within the government with better information who are saying something else. But from the information that we in the public know, we're not close to a point where this action was necessary. As a result, it is a war of choice. It is a war that they wanted, that the American government wanted. They just wanted to do this. That's all. There was no necessity to do it. And so I guess I have just given you my opinion. I said I wasn't really going to give you my opinion, but as I said, 2/3 of Americans are against it. You can figure out where my opinion probably is. Just because it's the majority doesn't mean it's right. I don't always agree with the majority of Americans, but that's a pretty big majority, especially given how politically divided America is. Almost everything in America is like 50-50. Because Americans are just so politically divided. It's just 50-50. Even just like the presidential election we had a little over a year ago. Donald Trump got like 1.5% more than Kamala Harris got, and they were both in the high 40s. It was like 49.5% to 48%, and then there were some minor candidates got a few other votes, which is why nobody was over 50%. But it was like 49.5% to 48%. I mean, everything in America is just 50-50. So 2/3 of Americans opposing this is a huge number. Now, again, it's not technically 2/3, it's 55%, but it's 2/3 of the people that have an opinion. So that's a pretty huge number in a country as divided as America is. So I told you I wasn't going to give my opinion, but I pretty much did. I'm just a normal American. I agree with most Americans on this, yeah. And there's not really been good justification made for what's going on. And I do think it's important for most people in the world to know that as well, to know that most Americans are not with their government on this. Because I think it can lead to a lot of bad feelings towards Americans throughout the world. Because, here America goes again. More war. Because that's one thing that America is really known for. War, 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 war. Well, just know that most Americans do not support what's going on. We do not support our government on this issue. Most of us. 27% do, which would be about 1/3 of the people who have an opinion. So 1/3 of the people who have an opinion on this think it's a good thing. And I did lay out the good and the bad. There could be some good that comes from this. If we manage to put in place a regime that the people like, that is more stable, this could end up good. It could. There is hope. It could turn out good. but there needs to be a really good, clear plan in place. And right now, there hasn't been one that's been articulated. Nobody's talking about anything. Maybe they have one, and they just haven't talked about it because the fighting is still going on. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, it could end up good. You never know. But as of right now, most people don't like it. All right, so that's kind of a really serious episode today, talking about current events, what's going on. But I thought it was important to let the Thai people know, like, what's going on. Because you may not hear it all from the news here, but I'm sure you've heard about the war that's actually going on. So what's it all about? So in the first part of our program, I gave you the reasons why it's going on, at least the reasons we're being told. Again, it's about Iranian weapons that they're trying to possess. And in the second part here, I've tried to explain to you the pros and the cons of what it is. And I wasn't going to give you my opinion, but I kind of did. And I side with the cons, and I think that this is a bad idea. But that shouldn't be surprising because most Americans are on that side. Most Americans oppose this war. So that's the story with what's going on right now in current events here in March 2026. All right, thank you for joining us for today's episode of An American in Thailand. Let me reach out to any young people out there who may be considering going to university in the next year or two. Why not consider our wonderful university here, RMUTP, Ratchabakon University of Technology, Peranakan. Okay, please stay with us and tune back in next week for another interesting episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.